Do you remember some of the poetry teachers had you memorize in school? Well, maybe it was Stopping in the Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost or Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's Paul Revere's Ride. Many would agree that poetry is wonderful, yet we don't often have or take the time to read it. Well, Mike Royer introduces us to three aspiring poets who take the time to write it for us in tonight's Spirit of Alabama.
Lizzie Bowen is a University of Alabama senior English major from Birmingham.
I think poetry is important because it's good for the mind and soul, and it is important to create and express yourself.
Avery Brooks, also from Birmingham, is a senior creative media major.
I think that poetry and creative writing generally are important because it's one of the only opportunities we as human beings get to really see the world from another person's perspective.
And Cass Lesko from New Mexico is also a senior majoring in English.
I think poetry is important because it gives people an outlet to express feelings and emotions that sometimes we're otherwise discouraged from expressing.
Now, I don't know many poets, do you? Now I know three. Poets write poetry, and who will read it is hard to say, and you can't always expect a lot of peer support.
Honestly, I started writing poetry in like 8th grade, but then people made fun of me for it, so I stopped until like sophomore year in college. So I've only been like seriously writing for like 2 years now.
I think that if you want to get really good, though, I think you kind of have to be pretty discerning and not feel great about everything you do. I mean, I guess just part of an artist is just being really uncomfortable. So I don't know.
And the questions your parents ask: can you make a living doing this?
It's possible, definitely difficult, very difficult, more difficult than anyone wants to say, but I think if it's something you're really passionate about, pursuing it is the most important thing.
Did you ever try your hand at poetry? It's really hard. If it was really easy, I guess we'd all be poets. The University of Alabama has some 4,000 books of poetry, and every one of these poets, every one of them, had to start somewhere.
It was quiet in Tuscaloosa, ever so quiet, not a sound. Though usually in dear Tuscaloosa, our screams shake the ground. But it fell ever so quiet in Tuscaloosa, as the pigskin ball left his fingertips. Celebratory drinks were poured out, but not a single celebration sip. For Winters was all we knew to be, seated on our throne. But
instead of a friendly wave or a cordial call of greeting, I dropped what I was doing and ran towards you. Our relationship no longer holds a youth vibrant as the spring flowers blooming all around me, but rather a familiarity, like the hallowed chapel grounds under my feet as I raced towards you. In days past, the pursuit of the unfamiliar clouded over my mind as I turned away from hallowed familiarity.
I spend my days driving up and down the same 50-mile stretch of road. I must have driven it 100 times by now. I memorize every billboard, every exit sign, every tree. My memory is a series of blank evenings, places without people, bodies without organs. I abandon my blood at the edge of the highway with the first sign of nightfall.
Our three poets don't know where their poetry will take them, but the good news is they're at the age where they don't have to know. There's tomorrow and the next day and next year to figure that out. That's the Spirit of Alabama. Mike Royer, WVUA 23 News.
You have a story you'd like to see featured? Just email us at spiritofalabama@wvua23.com.